Hello, hello. Just getting my little notes ready here. I hope everyone is having a beautiful day. And we are here today to talk about ketosis. And the way that I want to present it is not keto diet. So there is a lot of difference between just moving the body gently into ketosis with ancestral foods, using it as a healing metabolic state as opposed to getting into the keto fad and the prepackaged foods and things like that. We won't be discussing that at all, except for I personally wouldn't do that. So, okay, so human babies are born in ketosis. Breast milk is ketogenic. Often, the modern human will not ever get back into ketosis for the rest of their lives. And the human body was designed with multiple states of fueling systems, ketosis being one of those. Glycolysis is another, and then acidosis is another. Now we can look at, let's see, how I want to, yeah. So we'll start with glucose, when we burn glucose for fuel. And that is honestly how the modern human functions for the most part. We might get into ketosis by accident, but I would be surprised. I've certainly never been in ketosis in my life until I tried to get into ketosis. And it wasn't that easy for me because I had a chronic illness, but we'll get into that. So a good way to think of it is modern life collapses us into glucose dependence, and then illness can trap us into acidosis. And while there's nothing wrong with operating from your glucose system, you want to vacillate. You don't want to live in that state, simply because it's not the way humans were designed to operate. And when we're talking about glucose, just remember that your liver makes glucose. You have to have a certain amount of glucose in your body to be alive. And so your body's not going to take any chances on having to find that energy somewhere. So it's going to use protein. It's going to make it on its own, and we can have excess glucose from protein. Okay. So through the work of Mary Reddick, we've also found to her interviews, you can hear her explain that the modern ancestral tribes, the people that she has lived with and worked with, they are in ketosis either all year or part of the year. So I think that people can be intimidated by getting into ketosis, like it's kind of this scary thing. And that largely comes from a misunderstanding in the allopathic world. We are exhausting our bodies by staying in our glucose operating system at all times. You can think of ketosis as like slowing down, a dumping state, a healing state. And then glucose is more like for the spring and the summer and working hard and being outside more, being more active. and winter and late spring is kind of being this slow down time, this relaxation time, this time of healing. Everything with humans is cyclical. Everything has a rhythm. You can watch nature, you can watch animals to understand how we are supposed to live in a rhythm. And so it's no different with the very state and fueling system of our body. Glucose gives you quick energy. And glucose metabolism creates pyruvate. If oxygen and mitochondrial function are good, pyruvate moves into the mitochondria to be burned cleanly. But when oxygen delivery, minerals, or mitochondria are impaired, pyruvate is diverted into lactic acid. And so we've talked a little bit about glucose. Glucose can come from your own body. It can come from animal protein. It can come from plants. Now, one of the issues that we're dealing with in the modern human is that we have insulin resistance. Now, this is kind of a separate thing, but it also shows that the body cannot utilize too much glucose. The body would not even be able to take in too much fat, basically. For you wouldn't be able to, well, I've certainly never heard of ketone resistance because your body, it's like very similar to vitamin A toxicity by eating liver. Your body would not be able to eat enough liver for you to have toxicity. You couldn't eat, 4 pounds of liver in a meal and then 4 pounds of liver the next meal. You just couldn't do it. And so the body's very wise there. Now, what we've done for insulin resistance is we've hacked the body's wisdom. We've made foods hyper palatable, and everything has sugar in it. Everything. Unless you are buying like fresh meat, even a lot of frozen meat can have sugar in it. So we've hacked the body system because normally your body wouldn't be able to eat too much carbohydrates either. The carbohydrates would be so different than chips and popcorn and cakes from the grocery store and things like that. We can eat those and eat those and eat those and eat those until the body is suffering from insulin resistance. However, your body's not going to be able to overdo fat. It's just not. Now, in the beginning, when you're moving from a glucose system to a ketone burning system, you can experience fat malabsorption or fat intolerance, but that is not a human body problem. That is an illness problem, a chronic illness problem, and it is bypassed. It will, if you strategically introduce fats the way that we do in Ancestral regeneration protocol, then you will be able to absorb those fats. Sometimes pathogens are at play and they make it difficult for a long time, but we also address those. So when glycolysis outpaces mitochondrial capacity, the body converts pyruvate into lactate or lactic acid to regenerate, so glycolysis can continue. So I have been there. I have been in a state of acidosis. My son has been in a state of acidosis, both caused from chronic illness. So you feel like you have no energy because it is literally your backup. That means that your body has gone through all of the energy that it can, and it's relying on your save your life energy. You get breathless walking across the room. I would walk out to the backyard and feel like I had ran. I was just walking in the backyard and I would be so out of breath and my muscles would burn. The same kind of burn that you get like after you've worked out hard at the gym and the next day you're sore. And I mean, I would watch our son just like lift his arm and it would be, you could tell it's like all he could do and it was burning all his muscles. And that is what acidosis feels like. And you don't have energy. Everything feels like climbing a mountain. It should be emergency. It should be short-based. It's low oxygen tolerant. It's short-term by design. It's meant for escaping danger, temporary hypoxia, short-term exertion, acute infection or injury. Acute, not chronic. And that is what we are experiencing today, is all the chronic illness. When someone lives in a lactic acid metabolism long-term, they enter a state of functional acidosis. This does not mean the blood pH is dangerously low. It means tissues, cells, and spaces are acidic. So this leads to pain, fatigue, air hunger, anxiety, poor oxygen delivery, mitochondrial shutdown, mineral loss, and nervous system overactivation. Yes, it does. Speaking from experience, all of those resonate with me. Okay, and pathogens thrive in that state. And when we're talking about ketosis, we're not just talking about burning fat. It's a completely different metabolic signaling state. When insulin is low and glucose availability drops, the liver converts fat into ketones. Ketones burn cleanly. They require less oxygen per unit energy. They stabilize neurons. They reduce inflammation. Signal repair, autophagy, and immune modulation all happen in ketosis. Ketosis is anti-acidic, not acid-forming in the way that lactic acid is. Ketones are technically acids, but they are weak acids and they are efficiently buffered and used, unlike lactic acid, which accumulates when systems are overwhelmed. So if we're looking at it from an ancestral perspective, it's good to think of being in, like I said, being in ketosis if you're healthy, in the winter and late spring, and autumn. I haven't mentioned that yet. Autumn. That's how I personally plan to continue being in ketosis. So once I know that I can once again operate from glucose, which I've tested a little here and there, I'm going to test in the spring, like give it the big test. So I'm really excited to see how that works for me. My plan is in autumn, like mid-autumn, going into winter, and then early spring, stay in ketosis. Once late spring hits, when the berries would be growing and things like that, I will use that food. I will eat some berries as long as they're in season. I will eat only things that are grown locally and in season, though. I don't know. I haven't given it much thought, so I don't know. I know I will not be eating certain fruits because they are high anti-nutrient. So apple, I won't be eating apples. I don't know how I feel about bananas because they're so not the way that the original banana was. So I don't even know. I haven't really explored that. But I will probably eat some citrus. Definitely eat blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries. And I don't know. I'll at least eat those and we'll see how it goes. Always with fat though. For me, I love like some good, thick, whipped cream on top of my berries. So we think about being in ketosis at a certain time of year, and fasting, the intermittent fasting helps us get higher ketone numbers, helps us be in ketosis. And it's good to use for illness and injury recovery. Even if it was summer, if I went through something, if I got sick somehow or had an injury, I would pop right back into ketosis. Because when your body is burning ketones as fuel, everything relaxes. It's a much easier state for the body. So there's the three major ways that we can get fuel. And ketosis is fat derived. We've talked about that. And we want to make sure that we're using the correct fats. We don't want high omega-6s. We want saturated fats. And then you can get, if you are healthy enough, you can get some omega-6s from cold pressed oils. You wouldn't want industrial seed oils, but you could have a certain amount of omega-6s from true seed oils. There is a difference. If you find a good cold pressed sunflower oil or something like that, and you were interested in using that, it's not going to have the same effect as an industrial seed oil. However, you still would want to use that as a very small percentage of your fats, like maybe 10%. So ketosis is mitochondrial supportive, nervous system calming, immune system modulating, pathogen restricting, repair oriented. And so one of the things that is amazing about ketosis is that viruses often just skedaddle on their own. You don't have to really work hard to go after viruses. There are pathogens that we do have to go after. We have found out not everything leaves the body once the body is in a certain state and not feeding overgrowths. And like you can do a healing diet, like carnivore or something like that, for 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years at most. But even then, we want to strategically feed the birth microbes, go after pathogens, and rebuild that mucosa. I lost my little place here in my... So most of us who are chronically ill have glucose instability, insulin is dysregulated, the lactic acid is dominant. We are mineral depleted. One of the things you can throw at the body when you're chronically ill without testing is electrolytes and some minerals, because we're often, because we have been in sympathetic dominance, and that's not necessarily from trauma as we think of it. You can be in sympathetic dominance from having an illness. You can be in sympathetic dominance from working a high stress job, from being a high intensity workout person, from being a runner. You can, it absolutely comes from stress, stressful relationships, childhood trauma, and things like that. But there are a lot of things that we forget that causes trauma unless we are being good stewards of our nervous system. And so, like, even something like traveling a lot could, be a really big stress on your nervous system. Let's say you had work and you were traveling all the time and you were always staying in hotels, and then to wind down, maybe you went to like casinos or bars somewhere where it was very loud, and you were always indoors, and you were maybe having alcohol or something else to kind of calm the nerves. um, and you were just kind of staying in hotel rooms and maybe going straight from the hotel room to like a gym, and just never taking a moment to calm the body in between activities, and perhaps using activities to make you feel calm that were actually a big stress to the nervous system. So something like that. I mean, that's, sounds like a fun life, but if the person isn't stewarding their nervous system well, it could be, it could cause nervous system dysregulation, which is going to deplete our B vitamins. It's going to deplete our minerals just across the board. So, and when we're talking about B vitamins, we don't want to do B complexes. We want to add them in a certain way, which we have that available for you in Ancestral Regeneration Protocol as you go through the weeks. So ketosis is, if you just think about it, it makes sense. If you can't operate from glucose, then you're going to be in lactic acid unless you purposefully put yourself into ketosis. It's not going to happen naturally. The macros for ketosis would be 30 grams, or about a fourth of a cup of carbohydrates. And carbohydrates would be best if they were low anti-nutrient plant foods. So carrots, onions, garlic, broccoli, we have food lists for you with the lowest anti-nutrient plant foods. Know what he's doing. Jeffrey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you bored? And then 60 grams of protein. So that's like a cup and a half of protein, and that's for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Doesn't matter if you're big, huge, strong man. You're still going to do 60 grams of protein, and that is about a cup and a half. You can kind of get a feel for it after a while. Like chicken with the skin would be a little different than like a pork loin or something like that. And then there is no limit on fats. I try to do about 2 cups of fat a day, and a lot of that is cream, cultured cream from dairy. So if you couldn't do cultured cream from dairy, you could definitely just do the animal fats. And I would try for at least a cup a day of animal fats, depending. Ghee is really high fat, so you can go a little bit lower than that, maybe like half a cup, 2/3 cup, or something like that. The best way to do it is to test the blood. So if you can get like a Keto Mojo, you used to order it from Mary Reddick's website. I don't know if you can or not, but that's the first place I would check. It's pretty inexpensive compared to other devices. And what you would look for is 60 to 80 in blood sugar, and then 2.0 and above for ketones. But you want to get there slowly, and you want to do it a certain way. And we have all those free tools to help you. So you can certainly DIY it on your own if you want to, but it's nice to have instruction. And one of the things I would say, if you are going to DIY it, is don't worry about doing the macros at first, but just make sure your body is absorbing fat. So you want to add 1 teaspoon of additional fat every week. And you want to increase that by 100%, or 1 teaspoon, sorry. Increase that by 1 teaspoon every week. So the first week you would do a teaspoon, and you would do 1 teaspoon every single day except for on the day of increase. Then the next week would be 2 teaspoons, and you would do the same exact amount every single day except for on the day of increase. Go up 1 more teaspoon in the third week. On and on. And then once you're eating and tolerating a good amount of saturated animal fats, extra virgin olive oil from California is good, and coconut oil is good if you're not tolerating any animal fats, but you want to bring those animal fats in when you can, and you want those non-animal fats to be a lower percentage. You want primarily animal fats. And you can have trouble getting into ketosis, so don't be discouraged. It can be not fun. It can be difficult. But if you are operating from your lactic acid system, it's okay. It is okay to just not feel so great for a while and keep at it. Always remember when you're in a healing journey that healing is inflammatory. Healing has rough layers. Healing tends to give us upticks in symptoms. So if you had tics before, when you're experiencing a layer of healing, you're going to probably tic. You're probably going to be moody. You're probably going to be melancholy. You're probably going to be nauseous and possibly have diarrhea or not poop at all. So you have to do enemas, or you have to support with magnesium. Healing is make no mistake, healing is a beautiful, beautiful journey, and it is difficult. So when you experience a difficulty, that by no means you are regressing. It is just the nature of healing, and it is beautiful in and of itself, because every time you feel like absolute garbage, you know you're healing. You're like, oh, I'm so nauseous. I can't move. I just want to lie on the couch. And you're like, but I haven't felt this way in a while. So that I know that I'm going through this layer of healing. My most recent layer of healing was just a few months ago when I started to rebuild the mucosa as per Mary Reddick's work. And it was not pleasant for me at all. I have not had anyone else experience what I've experienced so far. My husband might be. We're kind of checking it out. We're not sure if he has poison ivy or he has histamine reactions. So we're just kind of trying to figure it out. But I had a pretty crazy reaction, and it lasted over a month. And there was no sleep to be had. My histamines were back and talking to me loudly, and I had rashes. At first I thought it was bug bites because it was summer and I was getting bitten by bugs because my histamines were up. But what I was experiencing in the middle of the night were actually histamine dumps, and it was causing rashes. But my mucosa was on the floor, absolutely on the floor. So it's fine. Like, I will go through the difficulties to get to the part where I can wake up, be in a good mood, love my family, clean my house, take care of our dog, serve my community, serve everyone in Ancestral Regeneration Protocols, show up for my classes, be encouraging, and it's not a struggle. I wouldn't take anything for the way I feel now. It's been so incredible. I've gone from a very dark space most of my life. Literally, I'm 49 and I was in a very dark space until I was about 40, 41, and experienced darkness in between, And the way that I live now, even when I'm having difficult times, I would do every difficult thing over again to be where I am, to be able to love the way that I love, even me, to be able to worship the way that I can worship, to be able to live in a sense of safety and joy and peace, and to be able to serve. I can't imagine anything more beautiful. And so it's only taken me almost, in April, it'll be 3 years that we've been on this journey. And that's not too bad. So when it sounds like, oh, it's going to take 2 years or 3 years, because Ancestral Regeneration Protocol is a 2-year personal commitment. You're gonna be totally different at the end. So I just put the 2 years in there because we use it strategically, but also you'll find that this is a lifelong journey and it's not work. It's incredible. So, let's talk about pathogens. Now, if you have trouble getting into ketosis, one of the reasons could be your pathogens. And so that's why we always say, like, rebuild the mucosa, go after the pathogens that you need to go after specifically. You can get a GI map, or you can just do some general things that we have listed in Ancestral Regeneration Protocol. We don't have detailed information. We hope to have that in the future. But right now, we do have a detailed way to build the mucosa, for sure. We have some of the pathogen protocol. We have some of that for the most common pathogens. And you can definitely benefit from that. You can also get a GI map, and you can use the framework to find out what you could apply directly. And you can post in our group and ask about that. I hope to build a chart. Well, I'm going to build 2 charts. One of them will have tons of microbial information, and the other one will be how to go after pathogens, but I need to do the work. So it is coming. It is coming in about a month. I will be doing it next month. So maybe not a month, but I will be doing it next month. That is what I'm dedicating my free time to for everyone. So just keep checking back and go ahead and start the mucosa rebuild, which is found in featured posts under a post that says, if you've been on a sugar-free, starch-free diet for 6 months. That's not verbatim, but it's close enough. And then week 59, our last one at this moment, which is February 9th, 2026. I don't know when you're watching this, but that's, I'm going to look, though, to tell you what file it's under. So when you go to Ancestral Regeneration Protocol, the Facebook group, you join, you answer questions, and you should be, as long as you answer those questions, you will automatically be approved. So here is week 59. We also have a table of contents. That's in featured posts. Okay, sorry. So you answer the questions, you get into the group, you go right over to featured posts, and you read each featured post in its entirety. I know some of them are boring. I know they don't all apply. I know it seems overwhelming, but just read them. You don't have to commit them to memory. You just have to get familiar with where everything is and kind of get an idea of what's going on. And so when you go to featured posts, currently, right now, as it stands, there's a beautiful example of how to log this journey. And then the second thing is going to be that mucosa, pathogens, birth microbes thing. So what we want to do is we want to rebuild the mucosa. We want to go after pathogens if needed, if you're in mucosal failure. Then we want to feed the birth microbes. If you need some health support, but you're mostly pretty healthy, go ahead and just start feeding the birth microbes and see how that makes you feel. If it makes you feel absolutely terrible, drop it for a little while and go back to the mucosa rebuilding. And then maybe in like 16 or so weeks, you could bring those birth microbes, the food for the birth microbes back in, but just pinches of each one. But it's all in here for you. So you'd go read that featured post, and it'll give you food lists. It'll give you links to meal plans. And then you would just go to files and you would follow week by week. Now, there are alternate beginnings. So there's a quick overview for family and friends. There's a quick overview for you to read. See, it's also in featured posts. But you can print it and give it to your family and friends when you say, I'm going to go on this healing journey and I'm just not going to be able to eat like pizza and cake for a little while. And they're going to go, what? That's crazy. And you're going to be like, here's your handout. If you want to. I don't suggest that for everybody. But people that are interested and they want to support you, we kind of have this overview that you can print out and give to them. We have a friends and family meal plan. So let's say you want to do it, but your husband's not into it or doesn't think the children should do it. That's fine. I would prefer moms do it first, even if they're saying, I only want to do this to heal my children. Because when we have sick children, we need the healing protocol. We are dysregulated. We have chronic illness. So I would say you do it for 3 months and you can do the friends and family meal plan, which is basically ARP except for the desserts, and only because they're made out of like cream cheese that you buy from the store that still has lactose in it. Still wouldn't be the end of the world if you ate it. I wouldn't want you to eat tons of it, but if you had like a little bit, it would not be the end of the world. So friends and family meal plan, say you're doing it, your husband doesn't want to do it, you can, hi Brett, it's so good to see you. The friends and family meal plan, you can just do that for the family and then do your own thing at the same time. And if they're not ready, I still say you do it on your own. And then in 3 months, when you're regulated and you've experienced some healing, you can focus on the children or child that needs it. We've got a high histamine meal plan for those with like MCAS and high histamine issues. We have a dysautonomia and nervous system disorder beginning. And we have a vegan meal plan and a vegetarian meal plan. So what you would do is you would use these alternate beginnings, but you would still start at week 1. And if there's something in there, let's say you're starting on the vegan meal plan, I would only do that for 3 weeks ever. Your next step would be and it tells you this, to bring in the vegetarian meal plan. So when meat stock is brought in, you just skip that for now. You skip that until you can do it, until you're ready for it. You can do the vegetarian meal plan for quite a long time if you need to, until you have experienced some healing and you've been able to reconcile how you feel about eating animal foods. So then you just go through the weeks. That's what you do. You go through the weeks in files, and if you need to go slower than that, you go slower than that. That's absolutely fine. All right, so, and it will naturally bring you into ketosis. Okay. Now, how the pathogens block ketosis and trap people in lactic acid. They don't just eat sugar, they actively manipulate host metabolism. And so you can be eating literally a perfect diet and still have blood sugar issues and still have these night wakings from 1 to 3 where your liver is so overwhelmed. They can increase inflammatory cytokines, give you insulin resistance, even if you have a perfect diet. They stimulate cortisol and adrenaline. They raise your blood sugar. They damage your mucosa. They release sugars. Often you'll see it in children. If, let's say, they've been on ARP for a little while and they haven't had any starch or sugar, but somebody slips them something like a chocolate chip cookie, they'll act drunk. They'll be giggling and laughing and having a good time because they are drunk because those pathogens have released like ethanol. So, the child did not have a gin and tonic, obviously. They had a chocolate chip cookie, and then their pathogens were super excited. And I guess they celebrated with some gin and tonics. Know exactly what they're doing in there. But okay, so they damage the mucosa, they release sugars, they impair mitochondria, they force lactic acid production. They create hypoxia, trigger cravings, and panic when carbs drop. So we've touched on this before, but your pathogens will absolutely do everything they can. And this is for overgrowth too. It's not just pathogens. There's opportunistic overgrowths and there's pathogens, and they will do whatever they possibly can to get you to have a bite of a peanut butter sandwich because they need their food. They want to live just as much as you do, and they mean business. That's why you have cravings. That's why you can panic if you don't have your certain safe foods or comfort foods, but it's not you, it's the pathogens. They will absolutely control what you eat if you let them. So they can keep the host glucose dependent. They can keep the host, which is us, lactic acid dominant and unable to cleanly transition into ketosis. Trust me, it can take months. So you just be patient. It's not pleasant, and that's okay. So it's not necessarily, oh, keto didn't work for me or I felt terrible. It is, there's something inside of you that is fighting to be alive. So just remember that when your body doesn't naturally go into a system that it was created to exist in, then that is an internal issue always. Anytime we experience these things, an aversion to meat is not natural. It is it's deficiency led most of the time, which could be pathogens. Your mitochondria eat fat and protein. So only your human cells can only eat fat and protein. And when you're trying to heal the human body, fat and protein is how you're going to get there. So if something's telling you not to eat fat and protein, it's not you. It's not your intuition. It's not, well, I'm different from everybody else. You share 98% of DNA with a dandelion. So we are definitely not that different from each other. And we all need copious amounts of fat and protein. Carbs, the modern human, despite what we have thought in the past, the modern human does need some carbohydrates, but those carbohydrates are to feed the birth microbes. We don't need it for fuel. We don't need them for fuel at all. They're great for cleaning the bile. They're great for making sure that our immune system stays strong, which is our birth microbes, or keystone species is another way to say those. You'll see that on a lot of GI maps. But it's not what we think. It's not, we don't have to have cereal. We don't even need cereal. We don't eat cereal. Please don't eat cereal. Grains are, after you're healed, and take that 2-3 years to learn how to prepare them properly. But your body doesn't need that. Your body needs the birth microbes to be fed, which the carnivore tribes do not. They have a perfect microbiome. So there's where the difference lies in that. That's why they can do carnivore long-term and we cannot do carnivore long-term. You'll see that when people's systems fail, like we've recently learned that Jordan Peterson has not continued to get healthy from his lifestyle. And personally, I would think what is at play there is that his immune system has completely failed due to the starvation diet, which is helpful short term. It's incredibly helpful and supportive short term, but we do not want to do it long term. So when we're getting into ketosis, first of all, most modern humans, like I said, are going to need at least some B vitamins because we're all under nervous system stress, and we're all probably going to need additional minerals. There was a time when we could get everything we needed from food, and I just want to give you permission to be okay with extra assistance for a time. If we need to take additional electrolytes, it's perfectly natural for the state that we're in as modern humans. If we need to take supplements for the B vitamins, for like people with dysautonomia often have an oleic acid deficiency, which is so strange because you should make that yourself, and what does that tell you? It's really depleting. Being sick depletes you. Also, healing depletes you. Healing is inflammatory. Healing is a stress. It's a beautiful stress, but nonetheless, it is a stress. So we want to support our body when we move from an acidosis state, burning our glucose, into ketosis. We want to support the body. So please do electrolytes. You'll figure it out if you don't need them, but at least start with them. It's going to support nerve conduction, improve oxygen delivery, reduce stress hormone output, support the mitochondrial enzymes, prevent excessive lactic acid buildup. And so we're going to also do a little baking soda in the morning and in the evening. In chronically ill people, buffering systems are depleted, acids accumulate easily, ketone transition can feel harsh. A fourth of a teaspoon of baking soda in the morning and in the evening, and you can do a teaspoon. You might want to start with a quarter teaspoon because it's not delicious. Kind of tastes like salty fish or something. I don't know. Baking soda is weird. But you can do a fourth of a teaspoon, but you can at least do a fourth of a teaspoon while you're moving into ketosis to support your body through the transition. But you can do up to a teaspoon. It's going to support acid-base buffering, reduce lactic acid burden. It's going to improve oxygen delivery. It's going to help calm neuromuscular excitability and help the body tolerate metabolic shifting. So, and it won't stop ketosis. It's not going to halt that change at all. I lost my place in my little notes. When insulin drops, which is necessary for ketosis, the kidneys excrete sodium. When sodium drops, blood pressure falls, adrenaline rises, lactic acid increases, and people feel anxious, weak, and dizzy. And that is where those electrolytes are going to come in. You can also, like, one of the best things you can do is if you tolerate carrots, onions, and garlic, or at least just carrots, or at least just onions, or at least just garlic, but you don't want to eat a ton of garlic. Your family doesn't want you to eat a ton of garlic. Have those cooked and just in a bowl so that at nighttime, often we can find that our blood sugar drops, and go eat a bite of those. Have some electrolytes, support the body. Just because your body is having a difficult time shifting, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong. What that means is the shift is more difficult because of the state of your body. So you want to support your body through that. Now, I personally have experienced ketoacidosis, and it's not the scary ketoacidosis, but it can certainly look scary when you see it on your little device. It went down on its own because I had woken up, but I was dealing with a serious pathogen overload. And so if it had not gone down on its own, what I could have done for one day is take 6 teaspoons of baking soda throughout the day. Now, I could not have done that for the next day, but I could have taken 4. And then I could have gone back to 2. So if you just go ahead and take the baking soda from the get-go, you shouldn't ever have a problem. If you do see those high numbers, don't panic. You can just relax. My body personally, because I don't have kidney disease, I'm not diabetic, and those things don't stop you from getting into ketosis either. You just go very slow and support the body while you're getting into ketosis. But for my body, I would have absolutely just taken the baking soda if I needed to, but I didn't need to. I woke up, the numbers were very, very high on both ends, and in like 2 minutes, I took it and they had fallen 50%. And then in about 10 minutes, it was completely back to normal. So it was a very temporary state, and it was caused by the pathogens. I know now. I did not know then, but that is a tool that you can use, and there's no fear. Just remember that this is a very natural state, and humans have done it since the beginning of being humans. Remember that we're born in ketosis, and breast milk is ketogenic, and our bodies would not bear children in a dangerous state. That's not how it works. In fact, your ability to have children is one of the first things that shuts down when your body is experiencing illness or like chronic fear, like war or something it thinks is war. And that could be, trauma. That could be all kinds of things. It could be a really stressful job. Your body will turn fertility off first because it doesn't need to procreate when systems aren't optimal. So our bodies would not have children in a dangerous fueling state. Ruminants I think that's interesting. Ruminants eat grass all day, and they're in ketosis. And that's really cool. Okay. And just so you know, bicarbonate or bicarb, some people call baking soda bicarb because it's bicarbonate of soda. And that would have come from mineral water, soil contact, ash, wild foods, and we don't get these anymore. So it's perfectly natural to be taking this in every single day. It's not as weird as it sounds. Okay. So we've basically gone over what it looks like in chronic illness, what ketosis is going to do for us. Just remember that it's an incredibly healing state. If you have thyroid issues, if you have nervous system issues, if you have any kind of mitochondrial fatigue or failure, if you have mucosa failure, all of these things, every illness, and the very serious ones that we aren't going to mention, in this moment. The big ones are going to benefit. The big ones, the big ones are definitely going to benefit. Some of those feed off of glucose. It's one of their foods. So you want to remove the excess bulk glucose. That's one of the first things you want to do in the big C. You want to remove seed oils, and you want to remove glucose, certainly. But the big virus is, viruses don't like ketosis. It's uninhabitable long term for viruses. So you definitely want to do it for that. And because we have not had high fat intake most of our lives, we have depleted the myelin in our body. The myelin is what is around our nerves. Our brains are 90% cholesterol. So we want to have that high fat in our bodies to rebuild the body, plus put us in a ketogenic state, which is a dumping state and a relaxation state for the entire body. So the way you do it is with real fat and real meat and your low anti-nutrient vegetables as carbs. And again, that's 30 grams of those low anti-nutrient carbs, 60 grams of the protein, no matter how much you are in the gym, no matter how big and strong you are. Every human does the 60 grams of protein. And then go for 2 cups a day in the beginning, but do it the way that we talked about, because you do not want to go from eating a moderate or low fat diet to having a lot of fat all at one time. And just to let you know, gallbladders experience dysfunction because we have a low fat diet. Gallstones are just little holders for bits of parasites or bits of metals, bits of toxins. So your body they need to be able to, you're always making stones, and your body needs to be able to move those through your bile and excrete them out of the body. So it's not a big deal to have gallstones unless you're on a low-fat diet. And that's when you're going to have these very stressful gallbladder attacks, that they call them. I had one before we started this journey, and I absolutely did not need to have my gallbladder taken out. It was painful, it was difficult, but it was temporary. And now it's amazing. I have no gallbladder issues whatsoever. And you won't either if you move into a high fat situation. The gallbladder actually needs high fats to function properly. Your bile needs high fats to flow properly. And it's helpful to, have carrots, onions, and garlic, or if you don't have super high strep, you can do chicory tea to help thin the bile, because it's going to remove excess estrogen hormones from the bile. So, everything we need has been given to us. So it's very different than what we were taught in the allopathic system, but that's okay. Remember that we don't just add in one thing or two things or this big new biohack. What we need to do is build the foundations and support the bodies, because our bodies do not have any idea that we are not still hunter-gatherers. They have no idea what's going on. They don't understand why we're inside all the time. They don't understand why we're looking at screens all the time. They don't understand cars. They absolutely do not understand ultra-processed food. Every time you spike your blood sugar, your immune system is suppressed for 24 to 48 hours. So that's one of the first things you want to do. We've talked about that in other lives. You want to remove that stress. That is a life and death situation. So is being indoors. So is staring at screens all day. So is sitting in a chair. Like all of these things are very stressful for the nervous system. And when the nervous system is stressed, the body treats it like a life or death situation because it doesn't understand that we're safe. So ketosis is going to be one of your tools. It's going to be very helpful for teaching the body that you are safe. So come on over to Ancestral Regeneration Protocol, read through the featured posts, go through the files, shift your body sweetly and gently into ketosis, and watch the magic happen. I hope you have a beautiful day, and thank you for being here, Brett, and thank you to all the future folks that watch this. I hope it benefits you in some way.